Who would ever think that the shameful and dark behavior of prostitution would now be advocated to be mainstream and acceptable in the popular culture? This is just one of the many perspectives surrounding the topic of sex work. Even in this day and age, the discussion of prostitution is still prevalent and heated. Mainly on the basis of morality, many think that it should be completely illegal throughout the country. And to be certain, Nevada is the only U.S. jurisdiction to allow some legal prostitution, but prostitution outside these licensed brothels in Nevada are considered to be illegal. Although sex work is only legal in small and specific settings, it still causes a lot of argument. Many believe that sex work is a valid way for people to support themselves, while on the other side, it's seen as bad for society. Prohibition of what people do with their bodies is something that American citizens are very used to talking about, whether it be prostitution, birth control, abortion, or anything in between. There is still a dispute between what lawmakers think is right and what women would want to do with their own bodies. Although there's much opposition to sex work, there are still many who believe that both men and women should be able to do what they please with their bodies as long as they're consenting adults. And many people still have mixed conceptions on the topic of sex work and whether it should be permissible in the realm of morality, and some say that morality really doesn't need to come into the picture at all. The profession of sex work has the possibility to be recognized nationally as a profession like any other, because there really is no way to truly stop sex work from occurring, whether it's legal or not. Besides the argument of moral reasons, there's not any entirely convincing arguments that should prevent prostitution from being a viable service and area of work. According to the Prostitutes Education Network, no law has ever succeeded in stopping prostitution. Prostitution is the provision of sexual services for negotiated payment between consenting adults. So defined, prostitution is a service industry like any other in which people exchange skills for money or reward. When thinking about it from a standard of a real job and service that can be provided to those who need it, taking away the possibility of prostitution could be detrimental to those in the industry, as said by Kadra van Tolly, a prostitute in Denmark. When the aspect on whether or not it's agreed upon as a society is taken out of the picture, it's easy to see that sex work can be taken as a professional business just like any other. On this side of the spectrum, it's safe to say that legally allowing prostitution could be beneficial for men and women in need. This service will continue to be around, and it would be easier to try to embrace it than reject it entirely. Prostitution and sex work isn't something that's just going to go away on its own, and with that being said, it should either be accepted and regulated or just be totally policed and tried to get rid of. Early Times newspaper states that current estimates for prostitution enforcement in cities across the United States averages around 7 million per year. In New York City, spends over 23 million each year on outlawing prostitution. Not only would legalization help save city costs, but it would also generate revenue through special taxes commonly called sin taxes. Even if you don't agree with it from a moral standpoint, there's no denying that making it legal even on the smallest scale could really help out cities economically. Those who support legalization aren't necessarily just there to protect the rights of people's bodies, but they also approve because of the other benefits that are involved. Treating this line of work as more of a profession rather than an underground secret trade could be beneficial and help us move forward as a society. When it's thought about, there really are things that could be done to improve this industry for the better. Moving forward with legalization could be beneficial for not just sex workers, but the general public as well. Although legalizing prostitution could be potentially beneficial for this line of work and for a general society, there are still so many risk factors involved. Not only does sex work have a negative stigma on the industry as a whole, but it really does have a lot of risks that workers must face every day. There's no doubt that there are dangers that prostitutes have to face every day, as well as their own personal fears that come into effect. To make a long story short, sex work has the potential to be violent and, in the worst cases, fatal. With prostitution being legalized on a large scale, there will be much more risk for STIs and infections to be widespread, and that's a major area of consideration. Because of their many partners, there is a greatly increased risk of exposure to HIV, and they are likewise able to spread HIV to many partners, as said by John Babinick, the director of the Two Knife Foundation, which fights trafficking of women. Infection and disease could really become a major epidemic if the widespread legality of prostitution comes about in American society. And even those who are not directly involved in the realm of prostitution and sex work could be affected from being with untested sexual partners, especially if increased participation in this industry occurs when legalization occurs as well. And to be honest, this isn't just like any other industry of service and consumption. There's many potentially dangerous outcomes that can occur from this. Not only is it dangerous on the grounds of health, many men and women involved in this industry experience violence and degradation on daily levels. The Malta Independent says that a good idea would be, rather than legalizing prostitution, we should be following the French parliamentarians who have just voted in new legislation aimed at supporting prostituted persons and considering prostitution as an obstacle to gender equality and a violation of human rights and dignity. This new law will address all actors involved with the system of prostitution in a comprehensive way, and people in prostitution won't be criminalized anymore, and on the contrary, will be offered alternatives to exit the system of prostitution. Helping people find healthy and sustaining jobs could really be beneficial for those who are in this industry and doing underground jobs that they might not even find enjoyment in. Many people, women especially, find themselves in these kind of professions not by choice, but because they have no other options to turn to. And people really shouldn't have to be living this way, going day to day in unhealthy and degrading professions when they could be getting help to get out of the system. No matter which side you are on with this issue, there's still many factors to consider when thinking about making prostitution legalized in a widespread manner. There are many negatives that can seem to outweigh the positives, but one side isn't necessarily wrong compared to the other. Those in the industry may try to fight for their profession, while others are begging to get out. You really can't have it one way or the other. Although lawmakers try to prohibit the use of prostitution as a means for financial support, it is still debated by many on whether it should still be legally allowed. Enjoyment, freedom, degradation, fear. Prostitutes have to have the ability to feel all and any of these in their line of work. With this in mind, it's up to us to decide where we stand.